Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Tech Talk. Today, we are going to talk about a much requested topic, Agile methodologies. It is a very popular or a very well implemented methodology when it comes to IT software development. So, as you guys know, for new listeners, Amit and I, we every week we pick a topic and we dive deep into that topic. Today, usually it's a technology-related topic, but today, because it was a requested topic, we're going to talk about agile methodology, which is not a directly tech topic per se, but it is very close to software development, and anyone who is in IT um, probably already knows about it, or if not, then they should know about it. So we thought it would be a good topic for us to cover. Yeah, I mean, we are not in any way the sort of the official sort of descriptor of agile methodologies, but we've used it in various engagements in the past, and a lot of the times we've also, while not strictly, used some sort of hybrid of agile methodologies tailored to the organizational need. So we have, maybe no academic expertise, but we certainly do have commercial and sort of practical real life implementation of agile methodologies. So yeah, quite exciting topic, quite a niche topic, and I feel like what we have experienced in our various job experiences would help the listeners and viewers understand the methodology and see the freedom it offers as opposed to some other ways of working in IT. So
Thanks.
thank you guys for listening, and thank you guys for coming along. Amit, do you want to start off with what do you think Agile methodologies is?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rinat, for that introduction. I think it was a request from one of the listeners, and we wanted to cover that topic. So Agile is not related to tech, but it's a process that people follow to deliver a software product, especially in the technology industry. And it has been very popular because of the way things move in the software industry. We have to deliver things very fast, and that's why this methodology came. But we need to understand the history behind why this methodology came. Because prior to agile delivery, we had a waterfall model, and that used to follow an iterative, I mean, not an iterative approach, but a serial approach where you start with, say, what are the requirements? What do I want to build in terms of software? And then you try to define all that. Then you start planning, okay, what do I need to build the software? Then you start building it. So you've done the planning. So now you do the development, and then you do some testing. And testing comes in the end. And the problem with that was that because testing was in the end, it took a lot of time to find the defects. So suppose you start with the requirements in the first phase, planning and then development and then testing. It has taken up to 3 or 4 months. So you have not actually tested or seen the product. And by the time you start giving feedback to the development team about how the product is and how it should be based on the requirements, you end up spending a lot of cost in fixing it. So it's too late in the cycle, and once you test, then you have to go and release it. So that used to be the earlier model, where you used to start with the requirements, planning, development, and testing, and then release. In between, you also had the design phase, where before the development, how the software should look, how the software should work, those things were also decided. So that design part was also there. Then a couple of I mean over a period of time, people thought, okay, we can do better. So there's a group of people, and they came up with the Agile Manifesto. And I mean, we'll not go too deep in the Agile Manifesto. People can Google it. But in principle, it was all about less documentation, less process, more about collaboration, more about the working product. So people didn't want to care about what is the documentation for the product. If the product is not working and it's not ready, then the documentation doesn't matter. And no matter how much process you follow, if you can't build it on time and deliver it to the customer, it doesn't matter. And then how do you collaborate? You should not have different teams and each team is working in silo for delivering a product. It's like you have to deliver a car, but everyone in the organization is working separately and they don't have the vision of the car. So everyone is working towards a common goal. So that's why people need to collaborate. So people from design team, development team, the product team, the testing team, the release team, everyone needs to collaborate together to deliver the product. And that is what was important. And that's one of the key features of the agile methodology. And what people currently are um, familiar with when we talk about agile is Scrum. So Scrum is one of the agile methods. So it's one of the methods in which you can deliver software using the agile methodology. Of course, there are different methods in agile. And we will talk a bit about everything, but this is in essence the agile methodology.
Yes, absolutely. That's a really actually really good sort of detailed explanation. Thank you, Amit, for that. But if I was to sort of take a step back and see from what other methodologies there are. So another popular counter methodology there are is called waterfall technology. So another methodology which is kind of a counter of agile methodology is the waterfall method. And what happens in waterfall method, as you just explained, that what we were doing is we will have the design and the test and the deployment, etc. And one would come after the other. We would finish one, and then we would start the next one, and then we'll deploy, which is, kind of, it looks like waterfall as, if you put it in a flow chart. Whereas Agile is kind of like, you take the feedback of sort of an MVP is one of the terms in Agile, minimum viable product. You basically just do the minimum customer requirements, meet them, put it in production, and then take feedback from customers, and then go back and do a continuous iterative process.
Yes.
And that's what makes agile methodology so sort of ideal for software development. I mean, waterfall methodology is not necessarily a bad method, because there are projects which are very ideal for waterfall, like, for example, a construction project. You have to build floor by floor first, because you can't build in a 10-story building. You can't build the 8th, 9th, and 10th before doing the foundation. So there are practical usage of different methods. But when it comes to software development, what we've seen is, there are bound to be bugs that are found. And then, the vision of the developer or of the project manager, that how the software should be, almost certainly will in some ways or another differ from the end user. And what's the ultimate objective? To make the software product usable or ideal or tailor-made for the end user. They are our customers. They're the most important people to sort of cater for whatever we're working towards. So for that, agile methodologies kind of enables that, it kind of ingrains that in our working process. And that's that way we could sort of come up with or continuously improve the software product if we work in this way. That's why kind of agile methodologies have gained popularity as software development has became more and more commonplace in the last 20 years.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
I think you hit some of the key points, which is like responding to change and maybe delivery fast. Because I think it's important in the world where everything is changing so rapidly, you want to deliver software very fast. And if your competitor has launched a new product, you should be able to respond to that change as well quickly. You cannot take 3 months to respond to an advertisement or a price change from a competitor. You have to respond very quickly. So you have to build fast, fail fast, and deliver it to the customer. You cannot say, "Oh, I'll launch my product in 1 year time or 3 months time." the customer will find some other product. So what you want to do is you want to release the website or any software product and then ask the customer for feedback, and change the software based on that. Because sometimes what happens is people think they know what the customer wants, and we are trying to guess it, and then we are trying to build it ourselves. And when we actually give it to the customer gives a totally different feedback that we never anticipated. And then we are like, oh man, we could have built the product in this way had we released it faster and got the feedback. So you
Yes,
waste
and
a lot of time.
now we have to go back and go through all of these processes of development, UAT testing, and deployment. So obviously that, obviously delays the whole
Exactly.
process.
So it's
Yeah.
like you want a login screen and you think about having a username and a password and a lot of other things, but the customers start using it and they're like, okay, I want single sign-on. I don't want this. And then you go back to the drawing board, you implement single sign-on, and then you release it. The customers start using it more and more. Then they ask, then you give them a new feature and they say, no, I want this feature, and then you go back, change it. So I think it's that iterative and respond, quickly respond. So a change comes, you respond to that. A feedback comes, you respond to that. And every time you respond, you give a working product. You don't say, oh, it will come, oh, it will work that way. Currently, it is not working, but it will work that way. No, customer wants a working product. Even if it is minimal functionality, they want a working product. They don't want something that works, oh, it will work 3 months down the line. There is a button, but it will not work now. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And because of how customer focused it is, or sort of meeting the needs in real time or in good time, that's what makes this sort of working process so popular. So I mean, obviously, right. So yeah, we've talked about what agile methodologies is on a high level, to understand the overall sort of definition of it. But now, obviously, it's a lot more than just the definition. There is a detailed working procedure with a lot of sort of different tools that make up the whole of the methodologies, like a Kanban board. There are sprints and how each of the tickets are, or each issue is handled, and how the work is allocated. So all of these things are quite detailed, and all has their own sort of small flowcharts, if you'd like, or small working process that one needs to follow if they are following agile methodologies. For me personally, I haven't I have sort of studied the agile methodologies with all of these details, but in reality, I've worked in various engagements in past where developers have been using agile methodologies. But what happens is, depending on the individual organization, some large, some medium, and some small scale businesses, they are doing software development. They are publishing products into the market, and it feels like, or what happened in my experience is that the practical thing to do is sort of tailor make the agile methodologies principles and sort of pick and choose the ones that works best for your particular organizational
Yeah.
needs. And not only pick and choose a lot of the times, but also sometimes sort of tailor some of the processes, sometimes amend them slightly so it matches the needs of your organization and things like that. So for example, and a lot of the times people do call it a hybrid methodology, where they kind of take the agile methodology as a principle, as the core of core working structure, but then they also add and remove various things based on the particular needs. And but I mean, some of these things that always prevailed is, one term, which is MVP, I mentioned earlier, minimum
Yes.
viable product.
Yeah.
This is something, so in the beginning of starting a project, or even in an ongoing project, you basically identify the success criteria or the customer requirements, that these are the things that absolutely needs to happen in the deployment, and then prioritize them based on, the importance of each of these, say bug fixes or code enhancements or features that the new product will have, and then make sure that MVP, so while working towards the MVP, is done. So you don't do too much more than the MVP. And every iteration, MVP, the minimum viable product becomes better and better, but you still work towards making the minimum viable product. And then
Yes.
the next iteration, you take the newer features, but you still go with minimum viable product. But every time you deploy, the requirements would increase. So the minimum viable product will be better and better every iteration, but we'll still be working towards always minimum viable product. That way, we're always a lot faster in terms of deployment and going through the whole life cycle of development.
You are right. You're right. Because I think that minimum viable product has to be a working product. As I mentioned, if you deliver a website with a button, the button should be working. Otherwise, don't deliver the
Yes.
button. Hide the button. So it should be a working product. So a lot of time people think MVP or minimum viable product is something that we just release to the customer even if it's not working. No, it has to work for the customer. And there are a lot of diagrams and memes on what MVP means, and
Yes.
what customer wants and what actually is delivered, and what actually MVP means. So we will share those links with the people. But yeah, as you mentioned, Agile has a lot of different methods. One of the most popular method is the Scrum methodology. Then you have Kanban methodology. You have Lean methodology. You have extreme programming. You have many other things. I think for today's talk, we will focus on Scrum and Kanban, which are the most popular software development methodologies followed by most organizations, especially where they have adopted Agile. As Rinat mentioned, there are organizations that still follow waterfall or a hybrid where they do part waterfall and part Agile, and it works for them. And every organization has a different product cycle and a release cycle, etc. So they adapt these process to suit their delivery cycle. So it's important to know that, okay, this will not solve all your problems, but you need to understand how it works. Especially for a small company, it can work. For a large organization to move very fast, it can take a lot of, I mean, you have a lot of inertia to go that fast. So you have to overcome that inertia. And it can work in small projects, but not at the whole organization level. So there is a new concept called scaled agile. So how do you scale the agile framework or the Scrum methodology from a project level to a program portfolio or even a directorate level, and all the way till the organization level? And that is also quite getting quite popular. How do you move the whole organization in terms of process and delivery, everything in agile way? And
Yes, absolutely, and that's quite interesting, because you say that, because a lot of IT companies or like sort of tech companies nowadays have this sort of, I don't want to say luxury, or have this kind of benefit to being IT company only, and not have a lot of the regulatory requirements that commercial or sort of
banking,
financial companies
insurance, yeah.
have. So, yeah, a lot of my engagements in the past were with financial institutions, and one of the things that prevents adopting to scaled agile is the regulatory requirement, compliance requirement that is imposed upon by the government or various other regulatory board, and that kind of prevents them. But yeah, tech companies, they
Yes.
could sort of adopt to it much more easily with lot less friction.
Yeah.
Going back to one of the things you said about MVP, I just thought about it and I didn't want to interrupt. So I think the key word is viable. I think a
Yes.
lot of people sort of put the keyword as minimum. So
Yeah.
so they focus on minimum, but I think MVP has to be viable. That's the part. That's how
True, true.
it
A lot of
kind of.
people get that wrong, and a lot of times they think that they're doing agile, but they're actually doing waterfall.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's start with Scrum, because Scrum is the most popular agile methodology, and Scrum has a lot of ceremonies. So you call them Scrum ceremonies, and those ceremonies are important for delivering. and we have ceremonies. You have a product, okay? So say you have a product. I want to build a website. And that website will have a login functionality. It will have a shopping cart. It will have payments. It will have a user my account. It will have a shop front where you can go and browse without logging in, etc. And all these are different features for the website. And I want to build this website. So there is a product owner, and the product owner decides how the product should work based on customer surveys, organizational needs, what the organization wants to sell, design, etc. And the product owner then comes up with stories or features. Okay, my website should do this. So when a user goes to the website, they should be able to see this. When they log in, they should be logged in with the username and password. Once they're logged in, they should be able to add something to the cart and check out with their personal details. If they are not logged in, do this, do that. So that's a feature, and he or she breaks it down into multiple stories. Stories have become popular, or issues have become popular with Jira, which is a very popular agile tool for delivering software. So a lot of companies now use Jira for delivering software in an agile way. So the product features have been defined. So that's in the product backlog. No one is doing any design, no one is doing any development, no one is doing any testing. So once that product backlog is created with a lot of features, then you go into sprint. So sprint is a short period. So like sprinting for a race, you run very fast for a very short period. So similarly, you develop very fast for 1 to 4 weeks maximum. Ideal spot is 2 to 4 weeks. 1 week is not enough. So 2 to 4 weeks is the ideal spot. So where you have development. Now 2 to 4 weeks doesn't mean, oh, I will design first, then I will develop, then I will test. So then it becomes waterfall. So you have to, as and when the feature is ready, you test, give feedback to the developer. So, so coming back to the sprint, so you have the product backlog with all the features and everything, and then you have the sprint. So what goes into the sprint? So you have a time boxed period. So it is fixed. You cannot go beyond 2 weeks. So you have to create the minimum viable product in 2 weeks time or 4 weeks time. So in order to
This
create
is
that product, you can only commit to stories that are feasible. So you ask for people's opinion. Okay, developer. Okay, business analyst. Okay, tester. How much time do you think it'll take to build this? Okay. Business analyst will say first, in order for me to define it for the developer, it will take 2 days. Developer will say to me, for me to create it, it will take half an hour. Tester will say, but because I have to test it on multiple platforms, it will take me another 2 days. So this feature, which you think should be done in 1 day, will actually take 4 days. Okay, so that story point estimation, and now people are collaborating. It's not like developer will say give an estimate, tester will give an estimate later when the testing cycle comes, and a business analyst will give a separate estimate. So I mean, so you have the product backlog, and you have people who are estimating. So you have the business analyst estimating, you have the developers estimating, and the testers estimating, and they're all estimating at the same time. It's not like a in waterfall that okay, when you come to development, then you estimate, when you come to testing, then you estimate, and we don't know how much time it will take. So now everyone is collaborating, everyone is working together, and everyone is telling, okay, this is how much time it will take. And then there is a scrum master, and a lot of people confuse scrum master as to what is the role of a scrum master. I'll explain it a bit later. But okay, so you have the product backlog, and you have a sprint. For the sprint, you need to have a backlog, and what backlog means is features that need to be developed. Okay, so those features need to be developed in a way that can fit in a sprint. So in some sprints I'll have 10 stories, in some sprints I'll have 5 stories because they are bigger in size. Okay, and all the stories will lead to a MVP in the end. So so you have the product backlog, which is the main product. Then for every sprint you have some backlog, and you feed those stories into the sprint, you add it to the sprint, then you start a sprint. Whenever the sprint runs, you have a scrum meeting every day, a daily scrum. So what it is everyone is talking. What did you do yesterday? What are you going to do today? Simple as that. Okay. So that means that whatever you have, the work that you have done yesterday, you're going to tell to the team, and the work that you're going to do today, you're going to tell to the team. And if there are any blockers, you tell to the team, and then there will be people who will help you, guide you, fix it. So that's a scrum ceremony. Once you finish the sprint, so 2 week or 4 week period is over, then you have a sprint review. What have you delivered? Let's review that. What have you built? Let's review that. You said you will build a MVP. Have you actually built an MVP? Let's review that. So that's a sprint review. And then you have a sprint retrospective. That retrospective is nothing but, okay, what went well? What did we do good? What went bad? What we could have done better? Things like that. Okay. So that's the whole, this encompasses all the Scrum ceremonies. So when people talk about the daily Scrum meetings, the sprint retrospectives, the sprint review, the sprint planning, etc. So when we are estimating that, it's called sprint planning. So you plan how much stories will come, how much story points will it take, etc. And all that comes into the planning phase, and then you start the sprint. Then you finish the sprint with a retrospective, and then you start the next sprint. So next set of MVPs, and that's how sprint or agile Scrum works.
Right, right. Okay, that's actually a lot of information and a lot of
Yes.
a lot of jargon. So let's review what we just said. So there, in terms of roles, there are a product owner, there's Scrum Master, and then there are
The
sprint.
development team, which is the which consists of the business analyst sometimes, or the product owner acts as a business analyst. Then you have the developers, then you have the testers, and they're all working
Right, right,
together as a development team
right,
or
right. So
delivery team, you can call it.
so product owner, and then there is a business I usually came across the term more SME, like subject
Subject
matter
matter
expert.
expert. So,
Yes.
so normally what happens is the development team and the testing team, they are more technical. And the product team
Mhm.
is more feature oriented. So they don't understand
Mhm.
the technology, and the people who understand technology, they don't understand the feature. They just
Right, of
understand, okay,
course.
I want to build this. What is the requirement? So someone has to
Okay.
translate those things. So someone takes the feature and then tells how it should be actually delivered in terms of the technology. So I want to create a user. A user should be able to log into the website. So it means I need to have a username. I need to have a password. I need to store that password and username in a database. I need to store the password as a hash. So if the database gets hacked, they don't get the actual password. So all these technical requirements will not be written by a product owner. So someone has to
Yes.
translate that. So that's where the business analyst comes. They will say, okay, fine. Okay, you want someone to log in, but behind that login, you have to do all these things. You have to create a database, you have to store the username, you have to store the password, you have to ask the people to change the password frequently. The password should match certain criterias, etc. If you enter the wrong password, you should get this error message, etc. etc. So all those technical things will be then passed on to a developer, and the developer will then follow that and then build it. In a story, you will also have an acceptance criteria, that this is something that has to work, and a tester will then verify or validate whether the product that has been developed or the story that has been developed meets the acceptance criteria. So a product owner will say, okay, user should be able to log in, user should get an error message, user should be able to log out. That's the acceptance criteria. Tester will verify all that, and then they will do a exploratory of, okay, what is beyond this? Can I actually log in without entering the username and password? Can I just enter the username, press enter without a password? Can I log in? So those kind of exploratory things. So those are additional on top of the acceptance criteria. But the acceptance criteria has to be there.
Right, right, right. Okay, so that's another piece of the puzzle as well. So, in terms of role, you've kind of said who, or, how many roles there are and who does what in a role, and then we moved on to the each individual tasks and which we are kind of managing in a sprint. So, if we review that part, so there is a main product backlog, and then there is like a weekly sprint,
No, not a
weekly
weekly
or
sprint, a
2 weekly.
bi-weekly, 2 weeks or fortnightly, or say a 4 week, monthly sprint
Yeah,
cycle.
yeah, depending
Yeah,
on
depends
the,
on the, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So on that period, you have picked out, you have prioritized a list of tasks that are in the, in, um, uh, that are sort of in the left-hand column, if you'd like, and then the development team, takes on each of them. They sort of assesses how long they will take, estimates, the tester and the developer all estimates, and then it moves on to from column by column. And I think this is where the term Kanban board comes in. This is the board itself sort of holds all the stories and tracks the progress
So
of the.
Kanban actually has just three columns. Scrum,
Mhm.
in Scrum you can have multiple columns. So let's finish about Scrum, because I think we
Okay.
missed one of the roles, which is the Scrum Master,
Yes.
which is something that people get confused with a lot. So Scrum Master is basically telling people to follow the Agile methodology.
Mhm.
That's it.
Right,
Are
right,
we
right,
following the Agile methodology of delivering software? That's the
right,
role of a Scrum Master. A Scrum Master is not telling you, okay, deliver that feature, develop that feature. No. Are you following the agile methodology? Do you have a product backlog? Are there enough stories in the backlog? Do you have a sprint backlog? Are there enough stories in the sprint backlog? You said that you will deliver it in 2 weeks time. Are you on track to deliver it in 2 weeks time? Do we have to change it from 2 weeks to 4 weeks then?
right, right,
Things
right.
like that. Are
And
you doing the sprint reviews? Are you doing the sprint retrospective? So Scrum Master has to enforce people to use the Scrum methodology.
right,
Now,
right,
once the Scrum team is capable enough, the Scrum Master's role is not needed. So they move on to a different Scrum team. That's the role of a
I
Scrum Master.
see. Okay, I didn't realize that actually. That's actually quite good to know. So, Scrum Master is also the person who would lead this daily stand-up calls or the huddle. I've had, or is it
They
not?
don't have to lead. It's all about people collaborating. There is no leader. There is no project manager. There is no. It's about us, not about him, her. It's about we. So when Scrum Master says, Scrum Master is actually not leading the call. The Scrum Master is just telling people, okay, are you following this methodology? You actually need to come and together and then ask questions. Okay, let's agree that we'll meet and so this time of the day, and let's agree that on this time of the day we'll talk about these things, and it should not take more than 10 minutes or 15 minutes, so we don't waste everyone's time in
Hmm.
large discussions. So that's what. And if it takes more than 30 minutes, the scrum master will say, guys, we said that we will discuss for 15 minutes, now you're taking 30 minutes. Do you think it's a good use of your time? So that's what the Scrum Master is there. The Scrum Master is there as an observer to see whether you're following those principles or are you just
Right.
wasting time.
I see. Okay. Okay. That's a good way to look at things. That's a really good perspective. Because of course, yeah, you don't want to, when developing, when working on a creative project, you don't want to be sort of burdened by micromanagement. But it should always be like a collaborative, a
Exactly.
project where there is a lot of sort of internal sort of incentive or motivation
Yes.
to rather
So it's
than
like a
being
bird's
pushed.
eye view of the whole project, and
Right.
whether it's working the way we want it to work. Because a lot of
Hmm.
times people don't have a bird eye view, and the Scrum Master has a bird's eye view of what everything is happening behind the scene. And then and the scrum, when we deliver the sprint can have multiple columns. So when you talk about columns, actually it's which stage of the delivery it is. So it could be in progress, it could be in backlog, it could be blocked, it could be in code review, it could be testing in QA, it could be done. So there are multiple stages. So that's what defines the columns. The work, you move it across different stages. In Kanban, you have just three stages: to do, in progress, done. And you can name it whatever you want, but you have just three columns. So it means you have to
Right.
churn those columns quickly. So in
Mhm.
Kanban, so the Scrum board will be different from Kanban board in this way. A Scrum board will have multiple columns. It can be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 maybe. Of course, it's not ideal, but yeah. And then in Kanban board, you'll have just three columns: in
Right.
progress, to do, done. Sorry, to do, in progress, done. What is there to do? Okay, can we move some stories to in progress? So yes, let's move them. And if the progress is done, has it been tested? Has it been verified? Done. So there is no in between of code review, this, that. It's all very simple and straightforward. So that's Kanban.
Right. Okay. So what would happen? What would be in the additional columns in the Scrum board?
In the Scrum
Because
board,
I
as I mentioned, so you will have code reviews, you will have
ah
in QA, you will have done, the story is done. So instead of in
or in
progress,
testing
so in progress would be for developer, then the progress would say, okay, let's go to code review, then let's go to in QA, so or to QA. It could be also blocked. The story needs some more information, or the story needs some more data inputs from product owners, or it can't be done, etc. So
Mhm.
blocked. Then you have done, so it is done, so you can release it. So things like that. So you have multiple columns, and you have based on the project, you can define the columns. Those are flexible. And when we are talking about all these columns, they are very specific to Jira software. So let's just clarify it for people who are there, who are listening, that Jira is the most widely used agile Scrum or Kanban tool in the world, and they use multiple columns. Of course, there are different tools and they also use, but we are talking about columns. Trello is quite popular, so a lot of people use Trello. It's all completely web-based, and you can have multiple columns, and it works on the same principle. You can manage not just software delivery. Some people use Trello for their day-to-day life as well and activities. So, so yeah.
Right, right. Okay. I was going to mention Trello actually. Oh, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I was going to mention Trello myself as you were talking. It is such an amazing tool and it's free. So for the audience who doesn't know already, Trello.com, I think, or I
Yeah,
don't know,
Trello.com. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Trello.com is a free Kanban board web page, and they have all kinds of feature, all available for free. And for any of your personal projects, or even if you're, starting up as an entrepreneur with a new sort of tech company or an idea that you want to sort of track the progress of, that is a really good piece of website that you would really enjoy doing the Kanban board on. And it's not just because it's Kanban board, but it's a really good tracker of your progress and all the things that you have to do. It could just be used as a task list or to-do list for your own personal things that you do. So yeah, not sponsored by them because they are free.
Yeah.
So, but do check that website out. It is a powerful website.
Yes. So yeah, so we talked about the Scrum methodology and we talked about Kanban, and those are the two main more popular. There are other methods, a hybrid method, a bimodal where you have waterfall and agile. So you have first part waterfall, second part agile. Then in hybrid you have waterfall and say, I mean it's a mixture basically, hybrid
Yes,
bimodal. So
yes,
you can understand like, okay, there are different methodologies and different ways to deliver. So you can
absolutely,
combine
and
that and you can deliver it. So I think that's the essence of agile. Deliver fast,
absolutely, yeah,
fail
yeah.
early, have a minimum viable product, make a working product for the customer, and don't, I mean, you have to document things. It's not like don't document, but the working product is more important than process, and collaboration is key. And I think that's what the agile methodology is all about, and that's what agile is all about. And the word agile means be quick,
Adaptable. I
be
think
adaptable. Yeah.
that's a more of a synonym. Yeah, absolutely. What you said is absolutely correct. And one of the thing is, I mean, this reminds me. One of the way I kind of made a hybrid model based on a project I was working in. Instead of Kanban board, I had created just like a sort of a tracker in Excel where I had 4 different work streams. So it wasn't. I had to rather than creating 4 Kanban boards and tracking everything separately, because there was a lot of resources or people working on it were kind of interchangeable to these different projects. So I sort of created 4 different work streams in an Excel file. And, the main thing about it is accountability, right? So, whoever is given whichever story or task to do, they take ownership of that. And I've sort of just, listed out the tasks and listed out the status of them rather than going column by column, just going the state, in the status, just
Yeah.
having a rag status, red, amber, green, and kind of like a deadline column, etc. So yeah, you can absolutely make any, the key thing is to have visibility, transparency, of what you're doing to your team members, so everyone can see what everyone else is doing. That way no one loses vision of the final product. And another key thing is accountability. So you don't have to be pushed by the management or your senior manager or whoever is, so you won't be micromanaged, but you'll have accountability to the rest of the team.
Yes.
So that gives you more of an incentive that, yeah, this is my task and I want to do it in my deadline, because otherwise everyone else is seeing, and also there will be people waiting for you to finish your tasks. So for example, the developer has to develop before the tester can test. So these things are all kind of comes together. So as long as these key requirements are met, you could design your own Kanban board for all intents and purposes. But yeah, Kanban board, the designed one, or the Scrum board, that is a very popular established method of tracking tasks. So yeah, design it if you absolutely have to, but there is a very working, effective model that you can follow, which is the Kanban board.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a lot of information, and Amit, you've taught me quite some things as well. I had gaps and pockets of unknown information in these, but it was actually good to listen to you cover a lot of it. And yeah, I feel like I have have more of a structured or a more of a fulfilled knowledge on this methodology, and hopefully our audience has the same sort of impression.
Yes, I think, thanks a lot for selecting this topic, and thanks to the audience who requested for this. We would have not thought about talking about this topic, but thanks to you guys, we actually decided to, talk about it and enlighten our viewers and listeners. And the important thing is to take back from this talk is that it's all about delivering something. And in order to deliver something, you need to have some tasks, and people need to work on those tasks. Now, how you work on those tasks is all about organizing yourself, and Agile is one way to organize within an organization. And you can organize yourselves in different ways. And this seems to be a very good and fast way currently, and in the future, we might come up with even a better way. We talked about robotic process automation. So all these processes that we keep talking about, we can automate that. So in the future of software delivery, we can have better methods. But as of now, this is one of the best methods to deliver something quickly. And that's what is transforming the software world. So it's very good to know about this.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I thank you guys, the audience, for listening in. We had a lot of fun, and I've learned a lot from this talk. Hopefully you guys did too. Hope to see you guys again in our next talk, and please do feel free to reach out to us in various methods listed in the description. Tell us what you would like us to talk about next, or any feedback or suggestions from all the talks that we've done in the past. If you'd like us to reach out to any particular tech notable person, do let us know, and we'll reach out to them and hopefully can bring them as guest. So yeah, thanks again for listening in, and that's all for today. Hope to see you guys next week.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.